Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first episode of our podcast.
So far, unnamed.
I'm Ayman.
I'm Garrett.
And we don't have anything prepared ever for this podcast. Basically, we're just going to be talking.
Yeah. Occasionally we'll have guests on. It'll be a little bit more specific, whether it's movies, video games, TV, whatnot.
And our conversations will consist of nothing to everything. That's exactly, a terrible way of putting it, but basically we're just gonna be talking about anything.
Hopefully not the day's news. I'd like it to be a little bit evergreen.
Maybe no politics. Well, not no politics, but we won't get too political.
No,
because that'd be boring.
We don't want to alienate anybody, but
yeah, we don't want haters.
Yeah.
You know what? Okay, so have you seen Solar Opposites?
No, I have no idea what that is.
Oh, okay.
Wait, no. Is that the Justin Roiland show?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
So basically, we're just getting right into it. Basically, it's like if you got Rick and Morty and then you took off like the cable censorships.
Okay.
And then there's like so much stupid product placement, but it's like so funny. Yeah. So like one of the guys is like, because they're aliens, so he's like, you won't let me have one of the one Diet Dr. Pepper I allowed myself every day. And then he pulls out, because it's an anime show, but he pulls out a can of Dr. Pepper, and it's like really, really well drawn can of Dr. Pepper, or like a really good can of Diet Coke. And then there's like Miller Lite ads in the show that are just like, it's like a poster of Miller Lite or something. And I love how they did the product placement, because it's like, obvious but funny,
That's interesting.
Yeah. And then like it's just sort of Rick and Morty, but less I don't know,
cringe, or
not less cringe. I mean, yeah, I guess less cringe, but also less like they obviously have to go around certain things, because like, Rick and Morty, the curses are censored.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know. But good show, I recommend.
Good show? How does it stack up to Rick and Morty?
I think it's similar enough, like humor-wise and like, the sci-fi stuff, but it's different in like how the characters develop and like what they get up to.
Yeah.
It's, I guess, but like, I don't know, it's sort of like some similarities are there.
Okay. Is it basically like everybody knows that they're aliens? Because that's what I gathered from the trailer.
Yeah, I know. They're just walking around as aliens. Like their spaceship is just crashed into a house. Like it's in the roof, and it's just huge and obvious.
That's funny.
And people are always like, "God, you aliens!" It's good. You'd like it. To continue the TV show talk, I started continuing Westworld.
Okay, I have not finished that yet.
I think I'm up to like the 4th episode of season 3.
I watched like episode 6 of season 3, and I sort of just lost interest. I don't know.
Really?
Yeah, I've heard it's online. People, especially on the Westworld subreddit, don't seem to like season 3. They seem to think,
wow,
it's not as good as season 1 and 2, and it just doesn't really stack up, and it feels kind of ridiculous, I guess, in a sense. A lot of people had the problem with the genre episode. Have you watched that one?
Which one is that?
I think it might be episode 5, but Aaron Paul takes like a drug.
Oh no, I haven't gotten there yet.
Okay, well, yeah, people have been complaining that they sort of do more abstract ideas of the future rather than focusing on the plot of the show, and
which is
sort of just do it things for the sake of it being cool and
right,
sort of like dystopian future sort of thing.
You know what? I like the idea of the hosts going about in towns and shit, but like sometimes it's like it's just weird. I don't want to say anything to spoil it.
Yeah.
But like sometimes Dolores or whatever her name was like does something, and it's just like no normal person would do that and like get away with it.
Yeah.
Or no normal person would have that thing happen to them and just stand up and walk away.
I can kind of see what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just like, and then no questions are raised except by Aaron Paul.
Yeah.
You know, it's just obviously like he's being shoehorned into Dolores's life a little too much. But, you know, watch the show. Tell us what you think. Tell us.
Tell us, the people with no fans, what you guys think.
Yeah.
Hopefully, we'll gain more listeners as time goes on. I know we have a few friends who'll be listening.
Yeah. Probably not. No. Definitely.
Yeah, they don't want to hear our voices. They hear us enough. I think the show, it certainly loses a lot when you get away from the Westworld setting. Season 1 is just like pure Western, sort of sci-fi elements mixed in, and Anthony Hopkins being sort of a god. Definitely the best part of the show, along with the Man in Black.
I mean, Anthony Hopkins is just, you know, him being there alone is already great.
Yeah, and then Season 2 has the sci-fi elements kicked in with, you know, the host taking over the park and whatnot. But I remember the first episode, I was watching it with my dad and my brother, and I was like, I feel like this has lost something without the setting of Westworld, because that's what drew people in. And, you know, as like the Western genre was always a big thing in film and television in the 60s and 70s, and then it sort of faded away, and then it comes back, but as a sci-fi show that's super interesting. And then as season 3 comes around, it sort of loses that luster of being a classic sci-fi element, or no, classic Western elements with the sci-fi twist.
I definitely agree with you on that, because it's just like, it's called Westworld.
Yeah.
And then it's just like, it's no longer Westworld. They might as well just call it World. Or like,
that's, yeah.
You know, what I really liked about season 2 is they explored some of the other worlds.
Yeah, only one other world, but there's like hints towards
medieval world. And then in season 3 they go to War World.
Yeah.
Just for that one episode though.
Yeah.
But that's straight out of the movie from the 70s.
I have not seen the movie.
I haven't seen. I've seen like clips online, but it's like, oh, there's Shogun World or whatever it's called, and Medieval World and War World.
Yeah.
And it's basically the same thing. And obviously, the Man in Black from the show is supposed to be reminiscent of the Man in Black from the movie, which is just one of the hosts that goes mad or whatever.
Yeah.
You know what? The special effects of that movie kind of hold up.
Really?
Yeah, because like there's this one scene. I think it came out in 79. There's this one scene where they like take the face plate off of.
I think I've seen that. Yeah.
And it's like really well done. Like sort of like, you know how in Terminator, like it was all like clay. You could kind of tell.
Puppety, and then like. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's the same idea. It was the same stuff, but it looked really well. And then that's actually the first movie that had CGI in it. Do you know that?
Really?
There's a part of the movie where the host is like the robot guy is like using like thermal vision to like see the heat signature of the people, or his vision. I think
I've seen that,
and it's all like pixelated. That's the first time they use computers to mess with film.
That's interesting.
So like,
it's super interesting.
But it's really funny because like. Now it's just like, okay, anyone can do that.
Yeah, it's a lot of movies are just a CGI fest with just so much computer generation that it starts to all look oversaturated. Yeah, and like just people are in there like when they're filming just as placeholder objects. Yeah. Or like The Hobbit, like some of it was filmed, it was all CGI. Yeah, The Hobbit, well, Peter Jackson took over after Guillermo del Toro left the project, and he didn't have enough time to get a script together and film on location and stuff like that, so a lot of CG was used in place of that, and the movie just looks like just too much of that. Right. And with Lord of the Rings, they obviously had all the time in the world to sort of... to craft it and make it look good, and it's funny because the movies made in the early 2000s look better than the recent movies, and it's funny because it's still what a workshop doing it. Yeah. It's just interesting.
I think if they, like you said, if they put the time into it, they would have been just as good as the original movies.
Yeah.
Or the original. Yeah. I mean, even though they're prequels. Which when I was younger, I didn't understand that. So I had obviously seen Lord of the Rings, and then I was like, oh, The Hobbit is, and I was like, wait, is it like a sequel? And then I watched it, and I was like, what's up with Bilbo? and then I finally put it together, but I was like, when did the first one even come out?
2001.
Right, yeah. So
Talking Lord of the Rings or
the Hobbit.
Oh, 2013 or 14?
No way.
Yeah.
Actually, yeah, that's right. I was probably in like the 7th grade. Or
yeah. WB wanted a trilogy to make more money. Obviously. And what it should have been probably 2 movies and maybe even 1 because the book is not very long. It's about equal the size of Fellowship, maybe a little less than that. And it was more of a kid's book rather than what Lord of the Rings became, which is just sort of high fantasy, and it's not exclusive to kids.
Yeah. They took the base story of The Hobbit and then just added all the fantasy and
Legolas is not supposed to be in it because he's not in the books,
right?
And whatnot. Just a lot of unnecessary additions to the movies that don't really fit the narrative and didn't really help it that much.
Yeah,
it just seemed unnecessary. It's more like there because they need a B plot to extend the runtime of the movies.
And they're long.
They are long.
They're
like
just as long as...
But Lord of the Rings, at least like another 30 minutes longer.
But the thing... Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, and even like the director's edition or the director's cut of...
Yeah, very long.
The third one. Oh, what's it called?
Battle of Five Armies? Or are you talking about Return of the King?
Return of the King.
Yeah, like 4 hours long.
Yeah, it's like 4 hours long, but it's still good.
All 3 of the director's cut are like 4 hours long.
Yeah, but they're still like you
really
watch
good.
It,
yeah,
and you enjoy it, and you don't really mind.
Yeah, the director's cut is for people who read the books. Well, the movies are for people who read the books, but there's additional stuff from the books that people who read the books can appreciate.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
And I still have yet to see the director's cut, but having read all the books and being a huge fan, like, it's something I'd like to return to.
It'd be really cool if, like, I don't know, that sort of stuff is like everyone knows that they're good movies, but so many people like haven't seen them and or refuse to see them because they don't like the genre. That's the thing about movies. Or that's the thing. That's with anything. People, they just don't appreciate it because they're like, that's stupid,
fantasy,
like nerdy fantasy stuff. Yeah, but it's like they're still good movies.
Yeah,
I think I'm gonna rewatch those soon, like sometime soon.
I rewatch them every year.
Do you?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, because I mean, your family like loves those movies.
Yeah, but it's at this point, it's just more of the fact that they're my favorite movies ever.
Wow.
And on the topic of CG and The Hobbit, one thing I did like, and very controversial these days, I guess, is for the sequel trilogy of Star Wars, The Force Awakens. J.J. Abrams brought back a lot of practical effects, and it's just like practical effects well done can be so much more preferable to CG, and I don't understand, like, it's weird that studios don't put in the time for this now to make a return of practical effects, because they're, when well done, I mean, they're much great. They're honestly, for me, preferable to CG.
Yeah, I really, because, like, first of all, that's what Star Wars is like built on, because George Lucas did the original trilogy, all practical effects, at least initially, and like people really, they were really into it because they're really into it because, like, it looks sort of real, but like, you could tell that there's actually an object there, but with CG, sometimes you could really tell when nothing's there. Yeah, and it's just all computer generated. So the fact that JJ did some practical effects for The Force Awakens made it feel like a Star Wars movie, but obviously the rest of the trilogy kind of fell off a bit. But it's a different discussion.
Yeah, absolutely a different discussion. probably save it for another episode because we could go on for hours about it.
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't want to bore everyone. I think we've already discussed like movies and shit that like not everyone has seen. I mean, maybe Lord of the Rings, but like Westworld, like who's watching Westworld?
And our initial listeners have probably already heard what we had to say about some of this stuff, so we'll just keep it short for you guys. And if we gain listeners down the road, then obviously we can expand on whatever. But it's not like, I mean, it's been talked about already forever on the internet, so we might have something new to offer, but it's like hot takes have already been made, so it's just something to sort of move past because everybody's already talked about it. It's one of the most controversial movies of this decade, you know, or of last decade, I guess, since it's 2020.
Oh, jeez. Speaking of
2020 sucks ass.
Every 20s decade sucks.
Yeah, that's true.
1920s, everyone was like, yeah, and then it was just kind of like
the Great Depression,
and the Spanish flu was like still around.
Yeah,
you know, they never cured that.
Well, it's the flu.
It
the
just
flu
sort
has
of
never
like
been cured. It just changes every year, and we get a new vaccine.
Yeah, but it just sort of like devolved into a lesser state of itself.
Yeah,
and then everyone was just like,
because medicine advanced sort of past it.
Right. Yeah. You've obviously seen all this shit on Reddit, but it's like, here's a picture of a trolley guy in San Francisco not letting a person on the trolley because he's not wearing a mask.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
like
and
that.
Most people just accepted that back then. Why?
People have gotten a lot dumber. I mean, we're gonna get into what we said at the beginning of the show. We wouldn't get into.
No, this isn't politics. I was gonna say with the age of listen, with the age of information. We are currently in the age of information. So many people have chosen to
they've elected to ignore it, and we can get into why.
No. I don't think it has to do with politics. Okay, so No. Have you listened to Slow Burn? No, you haven't.
No, I haven't.
Okay, so the first season's about Nixon, the second season's about Clinton. The first season, they get into an episode about this woman who had a radio talk show who basically started like the big American conspiracy theory thing. Because big conspiracy theories are sort of an American thing.
Yeah, the deep state.
Yeah, all that stuff like started in the United States. And
pertaining to stuff going on in the United States, I'm sure there's
eventually like the idea of
cases in Europe and whatnot.
But the idea of that sort of stuff going on like really began here, and then
it's a very like, you know, deep woods hillbilly sort of thing.
Right, yeah. And
like you can even go the other direction, far left leaning, you know, hippies,
right,
stuff like that. It's sort of like an extreme on both ends of the spectrum where people's distrust of the government comes into play,
and that
on both sides of the political spectrum.
Right, and that all started with like initially like the Vietnam War.
Yeah,
right? Because the military would report like, oh, victories and this and that, and then like you turn on like
the news,
like NBC or whatever, and then it's like Walter Cronkite, he's like, oh, another 1,000 Americans lost today, and this many
and live footage from the battlefield,
right? Yeah, and it's just like people retreating and us
and then obviously losing. The war protests kicked off because a lot of it because of the news coverage of Vietnam.
Right, yeah. And then that eventually, and then like the whole Watergate thing, once Nixon was like, I don't know what you guys are talking about, that never happened. And then slowly he started like, you know, oh, okay, yeah, this did happen, but you know, yeah. So like that woman, I forgot her name. I need to like look it up, but she started a radio show where she would like sort of, you know, disprove government things, and like that was the first time that it was just sort of like a big thing to like not trust the government. And she wrote a book, I think, about it. So that's like, I wouldn't say that's the one thing that made American conspiracy theories in America so big, but it's like definitely a proponent. So it's funny that now we everyone anywhere literally has access to unlimited information, and like people still choose to not believe that. I mean, you know, we all have our biases though.
Yeah. It's there's stuff like InfoWars, which just sort of stir the distrust among the people.
Right.
And it's like they claim to be an information news outlet. So they see that as news and information compared to what can be considered actual facts and whatnot.
Right.
So they look at that and they see that and they think, oh, well, this guy seems to have a lot of sources, in the multiple dimensions.
Yeah, because you could really fabricate or even find a source that'll prove any point. Although, like, most of the time, sources are, like, real points. If you Google vaccine autism, you'll get a million results telling you no, and then you'll get one saying yeah, and then that's it. You have your source. Like, you're done. Alex Jones, we should get him on the podcast, by the way. But
absolutely not.
But he's like, he's obviously a maniac, and he all these conspiracy theories, but he also sells his weird products.
Yeah.
And it's honestly kind of genius.
Well, yeah, it is genius. I mean, like, the dude's just making money off of it, feeding off of people's fear and anxiety about the government. He's a total con artist.
I mean, they're gonna eat your children and all that. It's so funny.
The fluoride is making the freaking frogs gay.
I actually love Alex Jones. I don't listen.
You're gonna need to cut that.
You gave me such a disappointed look. Here's why. I hate what he spreads and everything.
Obviously,
but
he's good as a meme. But other than that,
his meme and his stupid character is the worst. I mean, that fucking shit he said about that was angry. The Sandy Hook stuff is so terrible.
Oh yeah, it angers me thinking about it.
And he's getting, he had to pay a lot of money to those parents.
Yes.
Thank God. That good on that judge.
Yeah.
For like, okay, this guy, because, freedom of speech or whatever, but there's still, like, defamation.
Yeah.
And the law doesn't necessarily, like, if a bunch of people are being terrorized because of what you said, then you've committed a crime. I guess that falls into the big hate speech topic, which... we don't have to.
Yeah.
But Alex Jones, good meme, terrible guy.
Clearly, yeah. I mean, this is the only Joe Rogan I've ever listened to is his appearance on there, just because it's batshit crazy.
Right. Yeah. You want to see like.
It's funny to listen to while also being like, just disappointed that people listen to this guy.
Yeah, and you're just kind of like, how can we how is that like even possible that this guy can make so much money? He was filthy rich.
Yeah. Because
of like all the bullshit he spread. And that just goes to show how
listening to him talk about Pizzagate was something else. And the fact that like I can believe that there would be a pedophile ring within our government because they're the most powerful people in the world, but the fact that it's specific to Democrats and not everyone,
yeah,
like
no, because you saw like Bill Clinton with Epstein,
yeah,
but you also saw Trump with Epstein and other high Republicans and other high Dems. So it goes both ways.
Yeah,
all that sort of stuff does go both ways. I guess like the issue with stuff like Epstein and whether or not government people were involved is if a government person was involved, they could easily sweep it under the rug.
Yeah.
And the issue with Alex Jones is he's like he points that out. He goes, look, they're sweeping it under the rug, like they're hiding it away. But instead of like just talking about it, like, oh, maybe this, he's like, this is proven fact. Here's my source. It's some random garbage, Breitbart or whatever. And he's like, this is my source. Blah 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 blah. And then people believe his random stuff that he tacks onto whatever is like maybe true.
Yeah.
It's funny though.
It is. It's funny to watch because he's just a character, and it's astounding to watch him just sort of go off on these rants and, talking about the clip that always makes me laugh is the Hillary Clinton talking to Satan or something.
Right,
in Dark Lord.
And he starts just chanting like weird Satan and like phrases
satanic
or whatever.
Phrases and whatnot.
And like in Latin or whatever the hell it is. And then it's just like, okay.
And people are tuning in like, man, I really feel this, like I could totally relate to this. Hillary Clinton does speak to the
right,
devil.
Yeah, like she is the devil incarnate, and it's like, if anyone's the devil incarnate, it's like, I don't know, Dick Cheney, or like, Andrew Johnson. I don't know, like real assholes. Hillary Clinton is just rich and a bitch.
Chairman Z.
Right. Yeah.
All these horrible people around the world, and including in our own society.
Yeah, or like, no, but like,
I mean, as far as Hillary Clinton goes, we said we wouldn't get political, but to be fair, to play devil's advocate, I didn't like her as a candidate, and at the time,
you're really speaking our language with the devil's advocate thing.
Yeah, well, at the time, she's just, at that time, it's like, I mean, most Democrats were disappointed with the nomination. Like, people really wanted Bernie to be in there just to avoid Clinton.
Right. Or but, like someone else, because,
But like I was saying, the controversial things she's done in her political career, like Benghazi and the emails, like, that's about the extent of it.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
and that
I don't know about anything else, but like, that's what was talked about the most during the 2016 election. And then you have people like Alex Jones saying she's the devil, like talking to the devil, or
that's the
possessed by a demon. It's like, it's just the painting of a picture of the people across the aisle that it's just so extreme sometimes that it's really astounding.
But it's like kind of genius.
Well, of course it's genius. It gets you reelected, like,
elected, yeah, and like,
or elected, exactly.
Like Trump did such a good job of playing off of like what people are like
what people were thinking but never wanted to say out loud.
So I don't know. It's just it's interesting. All these like politics is really interesting. Obviously, if we get into it, it'll just get boring because everyone hears this shit all the time. Yeah. Especially, like, you turn on the news and it's, the coronavirus, more people dead, and you hate hearing that because it's just like, oh, geez, man, that really sucks. And then it's like, oh, by the way, we're very distant from each other. We're like, a good 6 feet at all times.
We're sitting across a large table from each other, so don't worry about us. We didn't want to do it over Zoom because that's a little awkward.
Or like Discord or something.
Yeah.
But anyways, you turn the news on, it's like, oh, coronavirus this, coronavirus that, and then it's like Trump.
We're in hazmat suits.
Huh?
We're in hazmat suits.
Yeah. We're actually, we spray each other down with Lysol.
60 feet below the surface.
Yeah, this is an airtight room.
Only one thing to get us in and out.
Yeah.
It's a strange time to be living in. It's something we've never experienced before in our lifetime, and our parents' lifetime have never experienced this.
Because
they experienced the Cold War, Red Scare stuff, but this is a little different from that.
Yeah. And even then, like, my parents are kind of a little... Well, because my parents didn't grow up here.
Yeah.
So the Cold War for them was just kind of like, all right.
The two big boys going at it, and we're sort of sitting on the sidelines, like...
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like, my dad grew up in the middle of a civil war.
Yeah,
like
it's like, which one of these two people are going to intervene?
Right, yeah. He was like, every day, for my dad, he's literally described, he's like, every day it's just kind of like, who's going to blow up what? Or who's going to start shooting who, and where will I be when that happens? There's so many stories of my dad,
that like... That Civil War, what was it? Was it communists?
No, so the Lebanese Civil War is... Basically, how the Lebanese government is structured is very intricate and stuff, and like explaining it would take a while. I wrote a whole paper on this, but basically, like, at some point people were just kind of like, well, we need like proper representation as opposed to this structured quote unquote representation. And it started with like peaceful protests, and then eventually like a bunch of groups were like, okay, we'll just pick up guns and start going. Yeah, like the Soviets and the Americans actually were not involved.
Weren't involved at all?
Not like entirely like out of it, but for the most part it wasn't a communist American thing.
I imagine the thought at the time was,
oh, we could definitely get in here.
Yeah, the people of Lebanon being like, is one of the two major superpowers going to be involved somehow? Like,
and the thing is there was it was 4 or 5 groups fighting within the Lebanese Civil War. It wasn't just two big.
That's interesting.
And one of them is still at large right now. Hezbollah, their terrorist organization, they're still around, and they even now have a bit of a position of power in the government. They have people on the parliament
as representatives,
and it's really funny because they are straight up a terrorist organization, and no one else likes them. But there's so many people that support them. And now, the Cold War that's going on in the Middle East between Iran and Saudi Arabia, Iran funds Hezbollah because they're, Shia or whatever, and they're anti-Israel. So it's funny. But yeah, so it's funny how initially during the actual Cold War, quote unquote, the Americans and the Soviets weren't really involved, for the most part, at least, in the Lebanese Civil War. But now in the newer quote Cold War in the Middle East, they are two powers are involved.
Yeah.
Well, the Americans. Okay, so the Americans, what they did in Lebanon is this is a whole thing. The USS New Jersey was used to fire onto Beirut to stop some terrorist organization. And another time there were Marines docked in Lebanon because they had to deal with the Americans, like most countries do, and they had this little Marine bunkhouse, I guess, and this guy drove a car into it and blew up.
Wow. I'm surprised that escalated into nothing.
Right, that's the thing, because the United States would have immediately invaded, right? My dad met a few Marines in Beirut. My uncle literally flew out of Lebanon in a military plane to the United States. He landed here, no visa, no green card, nothing. And it was I think they were in New York, and he called my dad, and he was because my dad was already established here, he had a life and everything, and he was hey, I'm in New York. And my dad was what? How did that even happen? He was on whatever, flying fortress they use nowadays. And it's just really interesting. The world has seen different struggles. I mean, my dad was when groceries were pretty scarce, my brother was complaining about it, and I was Dad, how easy was it to get groceries growing up? He was we didn't have, it was so hard to get bread, and I'd have to walk miles for water. So my brother was oh, all right, whatever. You know what I mean? We just realized okay, there's no point of complaining.
Yeah.
So it's just funny, my dad has been in a worse situation, so he doesn't really care. He's just stay distant, he doesn't want to get the virus, but he's not freaking out. It's just funny how
stark contrast of life there during the Civil War and life here.
Yeah. And I mean,
with stability.
Life there is still really shitty, in my opinion. I was there this past summer.
Yeah, I know.
And it was just
well, there's protests.
Actually, no, I left right before the protest started. But when I got there, a war almost broke out when I got there.
Really?
Yeah, because the Israelis flew a drone over Beirut, and Hezbollah, the terrorist organization in Lebanon, based in southern Lebanon, shot it down. Wow. Not Beirut, over southern Lebanon, they flew a drone and they shot it down, and the Israelis were what the fuck, Lebanon? Why are you shooting our drones down? And it's just well, we didn't do, you know what I mean? So it was heated tension, and then it's just kind of all right, whatever.
It was sort of oh, okay, Hezbollah did this.
Yeah, but in that moment, it was almost a major war, and I was flying to France to fly to Lebanon. The next day was my flight, and my dad was
their flight would have gotten canceled if something happened.
Yeah, or my dad would have just been yeah, you're not going. But nothing happened, and I was okay, so I'll go, and then we'll see. If anything happens, I'll just dip. Everything was fine, but then after I left, the protests started, but they were all peaceful, nothing happened, and they ended, and the government sort of reformed, but not really, and now everyone's on lockdown. They have strict lockdown measures in Lebanon right now, every country should. But at some point it was because they already had military patrol as police officers, And, like, you know, police officers would go around patrolling, like, all the time anyways. So now if they see, like, 2 people in a car...
I've seen clips of it, probably not people in Lebanon, but early during coronavirus, a lot of stuff was on Reddit of random countries where police would just come up and break any gathering of people sitting outside.
And in, like, India, they would hit them with, like, sticks. That's
and I know
funny.
Russia was like, okay, if you leave your house, you're getting arrested. Like,
right. But now it's now they immediately lifted down restrictions in Russia, and Moscow's having a really bad time.
Yeah.
And Putin's just
just look at Texas. Texas reopened, and they're having a bad time.
Texas reopened.
More cases.
In California are going to start opening soon.
Yeah. But I'm surprised California is like, all right, I guess it's time to reopen.
Yeah. That's what I hate about American politics. It's just like, okay, the economy's suffering. We will do anything to get that back. And it's like, what?
Yeah.
This isn't a traditional war. It's not World War II where it's like, okay, we'll start making a bunch of tanks and shit and getting money. Or it's not like the Great Depression, you know, just to get out of the Great Depression.
Yeah.
This is like, if you open the economy, it'll just get worse.
Yeah.
It's interesting. But we've allotted enough of your time today. And
time's up?
Yeah.
All right. I guess this is the outro. I'll do this. We'll be back next week. We'll see you guys then, and we'll have more to talk about. Maybe have some actual topics prepared. Who knows? And see you next time. Not see you. Hear us next time.
You hear us next time.
You hear us next time.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.